posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's up, everybody? It is Dives, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Today we got a hodgepodge episode of Sixers and Eagles questions. Let's start off by introducing our guests. First up, we got Jack. You know him at Jack Connell TPL on Twitter. What's up, Jack?
Nothing much, right? Talk to my guys here, Brock, Steven, of course you, Chris. Talk some Sixers, talk some Birds.
Let's do it. Next up, we also have Steven Conrad Jr. He is Philly Fanatic YT on Twitter. He is also Philly Sports Fanatic on YouTube. Check him out. What's up?
What is up, guys? And great job, Chris. You didn't butcher it this time.
For the first time ever. Lastly, we have Brock. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at LandisBrock, not Brock. What's up, man?
What's up, Chris? Gentlemen, I'm glad to be with you. This is my favorite time of the week, and let me tell you, I'm in class today, and there was a girl just rambling about how sports is just a game, and I can't believe people pay, and people shouldn't pay sports, people shouldn't watch it, and all this nonsense. And it took so much self-control just to laugh and not say a word. And this is serving as therapy for me. I've been waiting to talk sports all night, so gentlemen, let's get into it.
Let's do it. Just send her to Dallas, man. Just send her. Get her out. Get her out.
You can't argue with stupidity, so I sat there and laughed. But this is therapy for me.
All right, guys, let's do this. We are going to just talk about some Sixers key questions, do a little Eagles recap. It's kind of a mess right now. Let's talk about it. Let's start off with the Sixers. Who has been the most impressive player in the Sixers starting lineup this preseason? Lead us off, Brock. Go ahead, man.
I'm going to say Josh Richardson. And I say that because Ben Simmons had such a good first season, followed up by an even better second season, that the strides he makes will be monumental. Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris is a max contract player for a reason. I think I'm more interested in seeing how Josh Richardson creates, what he does in space, a different role where he's not the primary creator, and he's done a fantastic job doing so. He's thriving, tied for his second career high in true shooting percentage, effective field goal percentage. His PIE, or player impact estimate, is at a career high this preseason, and yet his usage is the third lowest in any preseason in his career. Josh Richardson is penetrating defenses by way of baseline. He's facilitating as a point guard, and he's served this team in many different roles. So Josh Richardson, he's been my favorite starter thus far.
Your boy. That's your boy. All right, go ahead, Steven. Who is the most impressive player on that Sixers starting lineup this preseason? Go ahead, man.
All right, so I absolutely have to agree with Brock. I am going with Josh Richardson. Sorry, I don't have a lot of analytics to provide you guys. I'm going to go by the eye test, and I've always been a huge fan of Josh Richardson, and I just love his fit on this team. I thought he'd be the perfect complement to Ben Simmons in the starting lineup. He can play off the ball, hit an open three, and he's great on defense. We all knew that, but something that I really like from him personally is how Brett Brown's been using him as kind of like the backup point guard. And I don't know if you guys remember in the postseason last year, who was that? That was Jimmy Butler. Well, guess who it is now? Josh Richardson.
Yeah, baby.
Love the guy. Most impressed with Josh Richardson.
Love it. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm going to switch over. I'm going to say Ben Simmons.
Oh, yeah?
He shot a three!
Woo! Yeah, baby.
But either way, he just looks a lot faster. I don't know if it's just me. He just looks like he's moving a lot more, pushing the pace a lot more this year, attacking the rim with intensity, aggressiveness. He just looks better this year. He just looks a lot better, and there's no other way to say it.
Awesome. I'm going to go. I'm going to cheat a little bit. My answer is everybody on that starting lineup. We saw again and again and again Brett Brown and everyone on that Sixers roster talk about defense, all preseason, all training camp, all offseason. This is the best, most hyped about defensive squad since 2001, and every single Sixers starter has a defensive rating of 90 or lower this preseason. So I got to say, I am just impressed by all these starters, man. And most important, what?
You did your homework, man. You did your homework. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Most importantly, what is synonymous with a Brett Brown offense during the preseason? It is turnovers. The Sixers are second in the NBA in only 17.2 turnovers a game this preseason. I am very impressed with that. When you look at the defense, when you look at the turnovers per game, they're controlling the ball. They're getting at it on defense. I just got to give it to everyone. You get an award. You get an award. Everybody gets an award.
Everyone. And let me add, because I wanted to state this about Richardson, but I didn't. But although it's a small sample size, only 4 preseason games, 51.2% of Josh Richardson's field goal attempted came from beyond the arc, which is a career high. Now, this is indicative of how he's going to play as a 76er. Only 65% of his field goals have been assisted, which is a career high. 35% of his field goals were unassisted, which is a career low. This means that his teammates are finding him in stride, they're giving him the ball, and he's capitalizing in that role. He doesn't have to be a primary creator. He just has to help the Sixers in different areas, and he's done a fantastic job in that.
He's been amazing. Jay Rich has been amazing. Let's move on to the bench. Who is the most impressive player coming off the bench this preseason? I'll lead us off. I'm going with Matisse, my boy. Second lowest defensive rating on the team this preseason, 74.5. Anybody want to guess who's number one?
I don't know why, but I'm going to say Kyle O'Quinn. I feel like I'm wrong.
Get him out. No, I hate that. No.
It has to be Embiid, right?
It's Norvel Pell. Come on, 74.
Yeah.
We all know, all right, going back to Matisse, we all know his steals and blocks numbers were absolutely mind-blowing. And there was some question if that was going to translate this season. It has. Matisse has a ridiculous 7.5 steals and 3.7 blocks per 48 minutes this preseason. He has a 7.3 steal percentage. If you look at last season, the number one in steal percentage was 3.1, Marcus Smart percentage. 7.3 steal percentage. It's a small sample size, guys. But come on, man. You've got to be impressed by Matisse. Dude, this guy is the next Tayshaun Prince, one of my personally all-time favorite players. Dude, I'm going to love watching this guy for the Blue Root. Go ahead, Jack. Who is your favorite player, most impressive player off the bench?
It's got to be Matisse. I mean, there's no other way around it. It's just the way he plays off-ball defense, attacking the ball from behind. It's just incredible to watch. It's just, like I said before, it's a new style of defense you really haven't seen with the Sixers team, and it's just so great to see. Somebody asked me the other day, do you really think Matisse is the best off-ball defender rookie in the NBA? I said, yeah. Like, who's better than him right now? It's the way he plays, the steals, the blocks, everything he's just been doing is just monumental. It's really incredible to see.
It's amazing how some people still question it. Well, is he only just a zone defensive player? Nope. Go ahead, Steven. Give me someone off the bench.
It's a crime not to pick Matisse, and you guys have pretty much hit the nail on the coffin with him. Let me just say this. He is so much better than advertised, man. On the defensive end, we knew he was going to be a menace there. He is so much better than what I thought he was. And he's a better shooter than what we thought he was, too. I don't know. Does anybody happen to know his three-point percentage off the top of their head right now? But he's showing floor spacing abilities. And I'm just so surprised that Brett's been not really surprised, but Brett has a lot of confidence in the guy. And, heck, he could crack a starting role on a lot of NBA teams if we're being fully honest. So it's easily Matisse.
Finish this off, Brock.
Now, I'd say Matisse, but that's the problem with going fourth. It's a little redundant now. I will say his demeanor is indicative that he belongs on the floor, which I really like. He's a dog. I'll say Shake Milton. Physically, he seems more mature. He's passing. His turnover ratio is down to 11.5. The season prior, it was up in the 30s, which is atrocious. Less assists, but he's shooting over 65% in regards to true shooting percentage. He's playing more confident. He's spreading the basketball. And it looks like he's having fun, which is, Chris, that's exactly what you said you wanted to see from Shake Milton. Have fun playing basketball again. So as a point guard, with a lot of turmoil right now between Raul Neto and Trey Burke, Shake Milton could be sneaky. And I've changed my mind in only 3 preseason games. I like what I've seen from Milton.
He definitely looks like a much more confident player. We finally got to see him, that Delaware Blue coach shake during the last preseason game. Moving on, our next question is an over-under on Ben Simmons jump shots per game. I'm thinking like 15 feet and above and beyond during the regular season. I'm setting it at 2.5 over under. Brock, go ahead, man. Over under. I'm gonna say over. And I say that because whereas last year when Ben Simmons were to pick up his dribble a little too far from the basket, he would look to pass. But Ben Simmons seems much more confident. He doesn't have the pressure of playing for a contract anymore. And he has a lot of shooters around him who are going to space that floor even further. I think if Ben Simmons picks up his dribble, but he has enough space to get it off, he will shoot it. I'm taking the over. Love it. Go ahead, Jack.
I think I'm gonna say the under just because overall throughout the year, I think he won't start off shooting as much as the year goes on and start shooting more and more. But to start off the year, I don't really see him shooting that over 2.5 a game. I think he'll take 1 or 2 a game, but I really don't see him putting on more than that. His game really doesn't show he needs to rely on that, and I don't think all of a sudden he's gonna start changing it too much over time. I think it'll accumulate to become more and more, but start off the year, he's not gonna be taking that many to start the season.
Awesome. Go ahead, Steven.
Yeah, I agree. I really thought about it. I think it's, but he's definitely going to be attempting jump shots than we have seen before. There's no reason why he shouldn't. For me, it's all about his free throws. I think he's going to be a lot more aggressive attacking the basket. He knows he has guys that can space the floor. He'll take jump shots when they're there a lot more than he has so far in his career. So I'm going to take the under.
All right. I'm going over. I'm feeling optimistic today, as you can tell. I'm a little energetic. I'm getting ready for that huge Temple game this Saturday. So Ben is taking nearly 14 14 field goal attempts per 36 minutes this preseason. Over the past 2 years, his rookie and sophomore year, he was right around the 12 field goal attempts per game. So I'm going over. If you can get in that 14, 15 range, dude, I think we're in for a really, really fun season because that's it, man. Aggressive Ben, Sixers win. All right, let's move on. For what you have seen from Josh Richardson this season, would you rather have Josh Richardson or Jimmy Butler on this roster? Go ahead, Brock.
I don't think there's a question here. Ben Simmons was 22 years old, and he wasn't cohesive with Jimmy Butler. So you appease your star player, who won't be a depreciating asset until his 3rd or 4th contract, whereas Jimmy Butler is already seemingly a depreciating asset. So you appease your star player, and you not only lose Jimmy Butler, but instead of losing him for nothing because you gave up Dario Saric and Robert Covington and your return was nothing, you get Josh Richardson, who statistically is a much more serviceable defender and offensively isn't too far off. He's much younger, he's much more polished, and he has a lot more spring. Guys, Josh Richardson was top 6 in the NBA season prior in average distance traveled per game and miles traveled per game, which is a testament of how he plays. He hustles, and he doesn't want to come off the floor. He's going to be a Swiss Army knife for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Love it. Go ahead, Steven.
Oh, no hesitation. Josh Richardson. I love his fit and just the age difference and the contract difference. Jimmy Butler was demanding a max contract, and as much as we loved the guy when he was here, let's be honest, he really didn't fit. It was a really awkward fit. Josh Richardson fit in seamlessly. We're only in the preseason. He looks like the perfect fit to complement the star players on this team.
Awesome. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm going to shake it out. I'm going to say if it's just this year, if it's in a vacuum, if you can plug him in, if there's no complications, you don't get Al Horford or anything, I'm taking Jimmy Butler. I mean, it's just you need the closer on the offense. So, I mean, that's a very big question mark about this team this year. I mean, Jimmy Butler is that perfect fit for that. I think he would have been fine defensively. If it's over accumulation of years, Josh Richardson comes into the equation. But, I mean, Jimmy Butler just this year, he's better. He's another all-star. That puts you at 5 all-stars starting in this lineup possibly. I mean, you got to go Butler.
Okay. For me personally, is Josh Richardson by far. He's been impressive on and off the ball this preseason. Just look at his assist percentage, 26%. He has the second least amount of personal fouls in the starting lineup. So he's not hurting the team in any way on and off the ball. It's no question to me, man. Josh Richardson is a huge upgrade from Jimmy Butler. I'm sorry. Moving on from Jimmy. Let's talk about who is going to lead the Sixers in steals this season. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm going to have to go with probably Matisse or Josh Richardson. I'll go Josh Richardson. I'll say Josh Richardson is going to lead the team just because he's going to have more playing time. I think Matisse will have more steals per 36. But I think just because Josh can be playing probably twice as many minutes, he'll probably have the most steals per game.
All right, go ahead, Steven.
Guys might be surprised by me on this one. I think Matisse isn't going to get enough playing time to lead the team in total steals in the season. I think it's going to be Ben Simmons. I think he just has a completely different mindset, and he's going to be guarding a lot of kind of like off-ball players. I don't think he's going to be guarding primary ball handlers. I think he's going to play the passing lanes. You're going to see a dominant Ben Simmons on both sides of the court this year.
Love it. Good. Finish this off, Brock.
I'll piggyback Steven. Ben Simmons has a very wide wingspan. He averaged 2.7 deflections last season. He led the team in steals. I don't foresee why he can't continue to do that, and Ben Simmons is only going to get better If you guys saw glimpses of season prior of Ben Simmons playing real good defense in the playoffs against Brooklyn and Toronto, if he can sustain that throughout the course of the season, I don't think anybody comes close to Ben Simmons in regards to steals on this team.
You know who played 22 minutes a game off the Sixers bench last season? Mike Muscala.
Oh.
The answer for me is Matisse Thybulle for the very much reason that Brett Brown loves this guy. And he's going to get more and more and more playing time as this season goes. I just see him right around that, like, at least 20 to 25 minutes per game starting off. Dude, I've just been so impressed for all the reasons I said before. For me, it's Matisse. He just, in terms of stealing, deflections, this guy's just the total package, man. The correct answer is Matisse Thybulle. All right, ready to move on to the birds? Let's talk some birds. Let's do it. This is kind of the topic of the week. Jack is going to lead us off with this one especially. All right, what was your reaction to the Jalen Ramsey trade? And how much should we be critical of Howie Roseman? Go ahead, Jack.
I mean, it came as a shock. I mean, the offers I was hearing was a lot more than that. I don't know what was going on. I really think he would have gone for a lot more than that. I really think Philadelphia should have paid the price. Those draft picks, the thing I will say over and over again, yeah, you're giving up your future. Jalen Ramsey is 24 years old. You use those first-round picks to get a guy like that. He is a generation-defying quarterback. What is that extra first-round pick going to get you? Nothing nearly as much. I really think they should have went for it. There's probably salary implications. I don't know. It just feels like it was just you needed to make that move. There's no way around it. If it was 3 first-rounders, okay, but it was 2 first and a 4th. You're really saying you couldn't have topped that offer? It's just ridiculous.
All right, go ahead, Brock.
Jadeveon Clowney is available. You lose him to a team in the NFC. Minkah Fitzpatrick is available. You lose him. Jalen Ramsey is available. You miss out on Jalen Ramsey. I do not understand what this organization is waiting for. They've rolled out an atrocious secondary for at least 6 seasons. The last cornerback that's been good for the Eagles is Nnamdi Asomugha, and not because of his play, but because of his name. The last cornerback that played well for the Eagles was Asante Samuel. And that was way before I even watched football. The Eagles' organization has rolled out an atrocious secondary and given Carson Wentz receivers that can't catch the football or see the field. And yet, Carson Wentz is exempt from criticism because his receivers can't catch, and they have the worst pass rush in football, or they have the worst secondary. It's nonsense. You want to talk about draft capital? You don't want to give out 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey? What the Eagles going to use that on? The Eagles have drafted nothing of any magnitude other than Carson Wentz, Goddard, Ertz, and a couple of names in the previous 6 seasons as well. They seem like the most incompetent team drafting because rounds 3 through 7 are where drafts are won, and yet Philadelphia seems to strike out every single year. Chris Carson, Marlon Mack, Matt Breida, the Chargers won. There was a loaded draft class for running backs, and the Eagles took Darnell Pumphrey. Every team won that draft, and yet the Eagles took Darnell Pumphrey. And J.J. Arcega-Whiteside can't see the field. His talent or lack thereof, I don't know what it may be, but Mac Hollins is playing over J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who was quoted saying he'd rather play special teams than receiver. I don't know. This organization seems incompetent when it comes to drafting, so I don't want to hear the excuse that draft capital is too much. Jack, you're right. Jalen Ramsey is a generational talent, and the Eagles failed to strike on him. So now they roll out trash secondary, and I can't wait to see what the excuse is next week when Ronald, Darby, and Jalen Mills get burned on double moves every other play.
Man, go ahead. Follow that one up, Steven.
Oh, man. I can't tell you how many videos I made about Jalen Ramsey coming to the Eagles. I got exhausted by it, and I was just convincing myself through all the rumors that he was going to be here. When I saw that notification, 2 firsts and a 4th, oh, my gosh. You got to be kidding me. Jalen Ramsey, let's be honest, guys. If that was us who pulled off that trade, top 2 Eagles on the roster, what do you think? It'd be Jalen Ramsey and somebody else. We can debate it. Jalen Ramsey, They blew it, man. Howie Roseman blew it. I don't know what he did. He sat on his fingers. I'm so pissed off. It's Dallas week, and I'm still pissed off. I wanted Jalen Ramsey on this roster to take on Dallas this weekend. I don't think Amari Cooper's playing. I'm hearing he's not going to play, but just think,
Actually, there was a report earlier that said he's planning on playing this week.
Planning on playing this week. Well, who's going to match up on him? Nobody.
Don't worry, man. They've got Jalen Mills, who hasn't played football in over a year and couldn't guard a double move. but it's okay because the Eagles' entire secondary, who can't even guard a streak route, will be salvaged by a guy who can't guard a double move. We're going
to get into that very soon with another question. What was my take? Personally, I wasn't surprised. We talked about this over and over and over again on Party on Broads. When I think of Howie Roseman, like, this is a guy that comes from the same cloth as Mr. Sam Hinkie. This guy loves optionality. He always has his mind 3 or 4 years down the line. He's a numbers guy. He doesn't look at the now. He doesn't look at the immediate. I always thought in my head that there's no way Howie Roseman's giving up these draft picks. And you guys are 100% right. I would have done the trade in a heartbeat, but he just sees draft picks the same way Sam Hinkie sees second-round picks. He wants that optionality. He looks at value. And then you look at how horrific that Golden Tate trade was for that. You got a third-round pick for that. That was not a good trade. I think they were still kind of learning from that mistake. It's not good, man. It's not a good look. This is not how we do it.
This is what I'll say. The NFC East will not have a wild card. Who wins the NFC East will go to the playoffs. Yeah. There won't be a wild card team. The Rams were struggling. They lost 3 straight. San Francisco just steamrolled them. Tampa Bay put up 55 on them. Aqib Talib on IR. They traded Marcus Peters. And they've traded the farm already. I mean, they've given out so much draft capital for Brandon Cooks, Mark, this and that. They are not worried about 3-4 years. Their window to win is right now. I'm of the understanding that Philadelphia anticipates as long as Carson Wentz is at full health, they will be in contention for his entire career. My problem is that this team is predicated upon their offensive and defensive line. That's where Howie distributed his money and drafted. And yet every season we have this conversation about the receivers and the secondary. Mm-hmm. One way to save the secondary is trading for Jalen Ramsey. And, of course, they didn't. And, Jack, I even like what you alluded to. If you trade Zach Ertz, you trade Zach Ertz. I think you can afford to lose a tight end if your buyback is Jalen Ramsey. I mean, that's a pretty good return on investment. And given that Dallas Goedert has so much promise and seems to overtake those passes that Zach Ertz was initially taking, and mind you, this is the lowest catch rate Zach Ertz has ever scored in his career. I think it's a trade you make, but the Philadelphia Eagles didn't, and now the Rams get Jalen Ramsey. And if he signs there, that defense is going to be something to fear for years to come.
All right, when it rains, it pours. Let's keep pouring it on. All right, how would you rank these 3? Howie Clentak, Doug Pederson, Jim Schwartz. Who is the most to blame for the Eagles' failures so far this season? Go ahead, Brock.
Could you repeat those 3 options again?
We have Howie Clentak, we have Jim Schwartz, and we have Doug Pederson. Go ahead.
I think it's Howie, and I say that because you can't roll out the secondary they have and expect to win. I don't care how good or how well your offense operates. The previous 6 Super Bowl winners have had formidable defenses, and when the Eagles won, they had a fair enough defense. It was more so the chemistry that propelled them to that win. Doug Pederson didn't revolutionize football, but he was at the forefront of the new era in football where analytics indicate going for it on 4th and short situations usually works. And Doug Pederson was at the forefront, but I don't think he's the reason they won in 2017. I think it was also in part Frank Reich why they were so successful, and he's had great success in Indianapolis, and the Eagles have struggled with play calling, but I don't think that's the fault of Doug Pederson. Jim Schwartz's defense has been inconsistent. He refuses to blitz. He doesn't feature blitz packages, but it's not his fault that the personnel they roll out is either A, always hurt, indication of mismanagement because none of them play in the preseason, or B, the players aren't good enough to be on the field. And you can make a case that Chris, you, Jack, and Steven would be better corners than what the Eagles feature right now. So in my opinion, it stems and starts at Howie Roseman.
Yeah, I'll follow that. Number one's got to be Howie Clentak, not trading for Ramsey, not identifying the lack of depth at defensive end. Easily, Howie gets number one to blame on this. I got to disagree with you there, Brock. Jim Schwartz, it's not that he doesn't have the talent. I don't think the talent, his scheme matches the talent. And I think it's Schwartz that refuses to adjust to his players. And then third, I'm going with Doug. I'm still riding the Super Bowl wave. I got to admit, he's a Super Bowl champion. The Eagles are Super Bowl champions. I'll admit my patience is wearing thin. Go ahead, Jack.
I'm going to go the first best play is Jim Schwartz. I mean, if any good defensive coordinator adjusts for what he has, no matter the situation. Mm-hmm. If your guys are getting beat deep, the first thing you do is just blitz so the quarterback doesn't have time. It's just as simple as that. You got to blitz more. Okay, you're supposed to have a good front four on paper. Are they consistent? Are they producing? No. You got to send blitz. You got to send those linebackers because those linebackers aren't doing much in coverage. So what difference does it make if you send them after the quarterback? You have to change it up. You have to do something. Either put different guys out there. You have to make a scheme change, call plays differently on the defensive side of the ball, do something differently. I think he's the one you blame the most. Howie, I think we are all complaining on Howie. I really don't think he is at fault, but he has done some good stuff. I mean, I really don't think there's anything in that. I mean, the Jordan Howard trade, there's some stuff he's done that has been good. Obviously, the defense is showing some issues right now. His draft picks are showing some issues, but he's also done some good. He has had some fault, but I think he's at the middle of the tier. I put him at 2. And then Doug Pederson, I mean, he's been fine. I mean, there's nothing he can do about his receivers dropping footballs.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, he could, again, I think he could run the ball a little bit more, sure. But, I mean, they had some problems against Minnesota, and I mean, he does what he can. I mean, I could say the same thing about Schwartz, but, I mean, Schwartz doesn't change. Pederson's at least attempted a little bit. I mean, that's just what I have to say about it.
I definitely see it as more of lack of execution on offense. Go ahead, Steven.
For me, it's a toss-up for number 1 for who deserves the most blame between Howie and Jim Schwartz. I feel like Jim Schwartz can only get so much blame considering the personnel he has. But at the same time, dude, it's been how many years and he hasn't had a competent secondary, but he's had all pro guys on that defensive line. Just figure it out, dude. Our offense had to put up 41 points to win the Super Bowl, man. Jim Schwartz won. He gets the most blame. Sorry, Ben, if you're watching, whoever's watching from TPO, I apologize. Listen, Doug, he has his ups and downs, but I love him, and he may not be the best from an X's and O's standpoint, but I will continue to preach this. This is why I'm not counting this Eagles team out at a 3-3 record. When all hell's breaking loose, when the locker room looks like it's falling apart, he rallies the troops together. So he doesn't deserve much blame at all, for being honest.
Any counter to that, Brock?
My problem with Jim Schwartz has always been his hesitation to feature blitz packages or stunts, which is exactly what Jack said. But for me, I think Jim Schwartz is fair. And if you look statistically at what Brandon Graham does on a consistent basis and Fletcher Cox, they generate a lot of pressure, a lot of QB hits and things of that sort. They're very efficient. It's the secondary that's been atrocious. And if your front four is efficient, but the secondary can't defend passes, they can't block passes, quarterbacks are going to sit in the pocket or step up, find spaces, and hit their receivers in stride. And the secondary can't do anything to stop it. My thing with Doug Pederson has been he's always gutsy, which is unique, and he delivered a Super Bowl, which is awesome. So for the time being, I don't mind Doug Pederson. I think it's Howie, though. And he's giving this an organization an opportunity to win, but at the same time, they're primed to lose because they don't draft, they don't have good depth, and I don't understand how you can continually, you know what, honestly, I'm going to criticize Deuce Staley. He should have been on this list because for some reason, his running back rotations have been horrid. And this is not the first year, this is the third year. You have Josh Adams, Wendell Smallwood, and Corey Clement. Okay, you don't know who your primary running back is. You trade for a running back who has led the NFL in rushing yards and rushing efficiency, top 5 respectively, since 2016. And he's not getting bell cow work. It boggles my mind.
I mean, Mike Bro should be on this list as well. Everyone needs to be on this list. Everyone's to blame. Everyone has a part. Some big, some small, some bigger. But let's move on. Let's talk about Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones. What is your take? Are you in or are you out? I'm going to lead us off. Personally, I'm not in left field. I'm not even on Earth. I'm like hanging out in the Milky Way with Saturn moons. I am so far fucking out on Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas that I can't watch these two play anymore. Luckily, we have Jalen Mills coming back. We got some help coming back, but these guys have been the biggest busts that I've seen in a long time, especially Sidney Jones. I had such high hopes for this guy. This guy, look, his head has been on a swivel since he's been a Philadelphia Eagle. Hopefully, maybe Cravon LeBlanc comes back and gives the Eagles some aid, but I'm out. Go ahead, Brock. Are you in or out on Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones?
I'm out. If you watched Rasul Douglas last week, despite not having much safety help, he could not even run with Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs wasn't running complicated routes. It was play-action streak routes, and Rasul Douglas couldn't keep up. Sidney Jones, I don't care what he does throughout the course of his career, I will never forgive the Eagles for gambling on him. Coming off one of the more gruesome injuries you could have, especially at his position, the Eagles selected him 43rd. Now, do you need a running back? Sure. Josh Adams was your primary. J.J. is not signing the year prior. Let's not draft Joe Mixon. Let's go Sidney Jones. Hey, do you need a receiver? Now, I don't want Juju Smith or Cooper Kupp. You need another running back? Alvin Kamara doesn't sound good to me. I don't understand this. Kareem Hunt? No, we don't like him. James Conner at the running back position? No. Eddie Jackson, Tariq Cohen? Sidney Jones seems like the type of guy. Are you kidding me? In college, after suffering that injury, 43rd? Are you kidding me? I don't care what Sidney Jones does. His career will always be overshadowed by who the Eagles could have drafted after him. They made a huge mistake.
What wasn't he like the projected number one cornerback on the board?
That's what I was gonna get. It was, I believe, him and Marshawn Lattimore were the two top
killers.
He was projected to go around the 15 range, and then he was projected to be one of the next best cornerbacks in the NFL, and then he tore his ACL.
You gotta be kidding me.
It's just, I get the. I mean, the thing I gotta say, hindsight's 2020.
Right.
I mean, how many of these guys can you say?
No, I agree. I agree, but I think the Eagles are terrible at evaluating talent. It's rare that a guy in rounds 3 to 7 turns out to be a fantastic football player. But teams usually get 1 or 2 of those hits. For the Eagles, they consistently strike out in rounds 3 through 7. They've been one of the better teams at striking out in the draft. And as long as they continue to do so, they're going to have to build their team with money. And money wins temporarily, but not sustained success.
Bang. Go ahead, Steven. In or out on Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones?
I am so far out, and I'm just so incredibly disappointed because I put so much stock into Sidney Jones. And you know what? Hot take alert. Listen to me right now. Every GM in Philadelphia, do me a favor. I'm looking right at you. Stay away from the University of Washington. Stay away. Never draft another player there. I don't care how good he is. We used the number 1 pick on a guy from there. And how did that turn out for us?
Well, Matisse is pretty good so far.
Oh. I'm sorry. I totally forgot about that.
Go ahead.
That's a late round pick.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jack.
I think I kind of saved my point already on Sidney Jones. He's one of the biggest busts in modern history that isn't really talked about. It really disappoints me. See, I really had high hopes for him coming into his career. I really thought he was going to be one of the saving graces of this defense as a youngster. It's just, he has completely wrong thing. Rasul Douglas, I've never really been too much on the Rasul Douglas train. I never really thought as him much. I thought him as a small rotation player at best. I really didn't see him as a starter or anything in this role. I don't think these guys are meant for it. They're not good enough. It's just plain and simple. Sidney Jones, who's to say? I don't know if it's the injury that changed him, if he didn't live up to the hype, mixture of both. He's not cutting it.
I'm at the point where borderline just sit Sidney Jones down and just shut him down because he just can't be on the field right now. Let's talk a little bit about this coming Sunday versus the Dallas Cowboys. How much do you expect Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby to help the Eagles defense? Lead us off, Jack.
Like Brock said earlier, Jalen Mills hasn't played a down in football in over a year. Who's to say he's even going to? I mean, did they say for sure he's playing?
He practiced in full today, so you'd assume, but I guess we'd have to wait till Saturday.
I don't know how much a guy that hasn't played in over a year is going to contribute right off the bat. He can help. Can he help down the line of the season? Sure. I just don't know how much he's going to do this week. And Ronald Darby, people were tearing him a new one at the beginning of the season. He's going to become the second coming of Asante Samuel this week. I mean, nobody they have on that roster currently at the cornerback position is a saving grace of this defense. They may prove me wrong. They really haven't looked like it at all at this season, seasons past.
Nailed it.
The move I hate them is giving up on Patrick Robinson, letting him go. I think it was in New Orleans, right? He went back to New Orleans. I really think they should have stuck with him, given him like a 2-year contract.
I think it was finances that prevented them, but you're absolutely right because you have to prioritize decision making, and he would have been more impactful on this roster.
Yeah, man. Go ahead, Steven.
I mean, Ronald Darby, dude, I don't know what happened to him. Like, ever since he became an Eagle, he's never stayed healthy, and his skill set was to be able to keep up with fast wide receivers. He's had nothing but lower body injuries. I have no confidence in him. Jalen Mills, we know what he is. I think he's going to bring some confidence and swagger that just if he can bring anything to the defense, it's that. But I think it's laughable that I understand we missed out on Jalen Ramsey. I just think it's laughable that this is the secondary we're trotting out against our arch rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, this Sunday, man. Like, it's just laughable.
Agreed. Go ahead, Brock.
I mean, Jalen Mills had an outlier season where he did play well, and he was one of PFF's more higher-rated cornerbacks. So I don't want to say he's going to be, terrible, but he's going to be terrible. Jalen Mills is going to contribute unfulfilled tweets, so he can keep that same energy and this and that. But as long as he steps on the field, he will be embarrassed. And Ronald Darby will be able to contribute to deteriorating open field tackling because that's already a problem, and it's only going to get worse. You're facing Amari Cooper, provided he suits up, who is, I'd argue, the best route runner in football. Michael Gallup, who's speedy, great underneath, and is one of the more slippery receivers on that team. Randall Cobb and Tavon Austin will beat you inside and outside. And Ezekiel Elliott, despite what he does as a running back, is a fine pass catcher. And with Nigel Bradham hurt, there's nobody that's in the linebacking core that can stick with Ezekiel Elliott as a pass-catching running back. Although the one thing that makes me happy is that you're putting the football in Dak Prescott's hands, which you never know what's going to happen because he's been streaky, and without Tyron Smith, he has a very negative record. I believe only 5 wins without Tyron Smith compared to 10-plus losses, which makes me happy. But at the same time, Carson Wentz hasn't led a game-winning drive yet. If they're in a position where they have to come back and claw against Dallas, I don't know who I'm taking.
All right. Let's talk about it. What is your confidence level heading into Dallas Sunday night? Go ahead, Brock. Finish this off. This is the last question here.
Well, like I said, without their big guy left tackle, I think that bodes well for Philadelphia, and I do think they play with a chip on their shoulder against Dallas. Doug Pederson said we're going to win this football game, so he's putting a target on the Eagles' back, and I think they're cognizant of that. They know they're playing Dallas, and there is a great rivalry there. I'm confident that the Eagles offensively can go toe-to-toe with Dallas, but defensively, I am a little worried, and now that Amari Cooper is potentially playing, I am even more worried. My confidence is probably about 40% Eagles winning, 60% Eagles losing.
Okay. Go ahead, Steven.
So honestly, I'm not all that confident in this team, but for some reason, I just think they're not going to lose this Sunday. There's no way. For so many different reasons, Carson needs this win. Doug needs this win to get the locker room back together. And ultimately, if this team wants to make the playoffs, you have got to beat the team. You've got to win the division, like Brock and a few of you other guys said earlier. You have to win this division. How do you do that? Face the team that's neck and neck with you right now. You got to take care of business this Sunday. I think the Eagles are going to get it done.
I think this is like exactly what you're going to see week to week. If the Eagles win, then they're going to lose the following week. It's just going to be an emotional roller coaster. Go ahead, Jack.
I mean, I'm not really getting my hopes up that much. I mean, last year, was the last game the Amari Cooper overtime touchdown? Was that the last?
I don't recall.
Well, he still went for 200+ yards. So he torched them.
I just think they've got more help receiver around him this year. You've got the corpse of Jason Wood at tight ends. Even Ezekiel, I don't know how much you're going to be able to stop him. I really am not too sure. I'm going probably 30%.
All right. For me personally, it is very low. I'd say probably around like a good 30%. Right on, Jack. It really, for me, boils all the way down to Carson Wentz. We're going to need like 4 or 5 of those like unbelievable Carson Wentz plays where he escapes pressure and makes a play out of nothing. The defense is what it is right now. I just need Carson Wentz to carry us on our back. We're probably going to have to score at least 30 points in the game. And a big storyline here is Andre Dillard and how he performs at left tackle this game. Other than that, pretty grim, guys. Pretty grim. What is going on with the Eagles? It makes me even want to kick my own ass even more when we're talking about wanting Sixers basketball in October. Eagles season is not supposed to be over yet. This is not
even close. Not even close, but I think this win, provided they do win, will be a game changer for Philadelphia fans. And I think they're going to act irrationally because if the Eagles do blow Dallas out, then of course they're winning the NFC East and they're better than the Saints and better than the Seahawks and this and that. But the Cowboys are very nicked up, so I think that improves my confidence heading into Sunday a little bit. But the one thing I've been paying close attention to is how the Cowboys have been responding to Jason Garrett this season, and it's been very negative. If you guys noticed last week, the defense was running off the field. They didn't high-five Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett seems like he's in this job more so for the money than the actual status of the job. And Jerry Jones, for some reason, is still involved with the organization, and that's one of the downfalls or the albatross around organizations' neck, is when the owner gets too involved, and Jerry Jones is too involved in Dallas's affairs. He refuses to fire Jason Garrett, and after a gut-wrenching loss to the Jets, the Cowboys looked as bad as ever, and I don't think they have any leadership in the locker room. So Doug Pederson said this team was going to win, and I don't think he'd make that statement if he didn't think they could. So if they have a great week of practice, they get a little healthier in the secondary, whereas Dallas is more nicked up. I think my confidence, I just convinced myself to raise my confidence a little bit. I'm going 60% Eagles, 40% Dallas now.
All right. Any last comments, Steven, before we wrap it up?
No, but let me just tell. I'm glad you mentioned that thing about Jason Garrett. I think Dallas is going into this game playing really nervous, you know. I think Jason Garrett's job could be on the line, but who knows with Jerry Jones? I mean, he loves yes man Jason Garrett, but I think the Eagles are going into this game extremely hungry. And Doug Pederson, this is what I said earlier. He is so. A lot of people may think he's really stupid for saying what he said, vowing that the Eagles are going to win this game this weekend. But he put pressure on his guys, and I think when this team has their back up against the wall, they seem to perform at a really high level. A lot of veteran guys on this team. I think you should be confident about the Eagles heading into the Sunday.
Love it. Last comments, Jack?
I think the one thing I just wanted to touch on that I will give a plus to the front office is cutting Zach Brown.
He's been terrible.
He said too much stuff, and he hasn't backed up at all on the field. He's put them in a lot of trouble, given the other team's locker bulletin board material. It's just they sent a statement to the rest of the team. I mean, because this guy wasn't a backer. He was your starting middle linebacker, and they just cut him middle of the season. That's something really you don't see in the NFL, and I think they just kind of sent a notice to the locker room like, don't mess around.
He didn't buy in.
Nope, he did not buy in. Speaking of buy in, he is Jack Connell. Follow him on Twitter at JackConnellTPL. Then we got Steven Conrad Jr. He is Philly Fanatic YT on Twitter. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on his YouTube channel at Philly Sports Fanatic. And that is Brock. Follow him on Twitter at Landis Brock. Let's go, Birds. Big W coming up Sunday night. Make sure you follow all of our Eagles content and Sixers content over at thepaintedlines.com. Thanks for listening, guys. See ya. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get it.